Hi, and welcome to Random Fandom FC, the podcast where each week I meet a new fan and explore how they came to support their team, what's been their highest high, their lowest low, and anything else I should know. We look ahead to their next game and get a prediction, and then next week we'll check in to see if we were a blessing or a curse to the teams that we follow. My name's Rob, an Arsenal fan living in the States, and I'll be your host. Okay, time to do the match report for last week. John came on and we both predicted the Southampton game. But before we do that, let's just quickly look at the midweek Champions League game. John said bizarrely he would prefer to lose the first leg by a goal because felt they would come roaring back at Anfield. Well, John, you didn't get your wish because thanks to Allison, you kept Paris at bay for the entire game and then actually went and scored a winner right at the end. So it's a 1-0 win to take to Anfield. Then we look at Southampton. You went big 7-1. I went big 5-0. It's fair to say Liverpool got the job done in the end, extend their lead to 16 points at the top, but it was a little bit of an effort, more than we probably thought. And in fact, at halftime, I was in dreamland because Smallbone had given Southampton a one-goal lead at Anfield. It was never going to last, though. You know that Liverpool are going to come roaring out, and within 10 minutes of the second half, they've turned it right around. Nunez scores the first, Salah scores the second, and then put the icing on the cake at the end. So a 3-1 victory. A win in the bag for Random Fandom, but no correct scores. Let's see if we can follow that up with another win for Random Fandom, and let's find out who we're following this week. Well, as the crowd is chanting, who are you and who do you support?
The Super Derby County.
And what's your name?
My name's Steve.
Fair to say that many moons ago we shared many taxi journeys from Cardiff to Heathrow.
Many football stories, yes.
Many football stories. So when I was doing this pod, I thought, I know who I can reach out to come and talk about all things Derby.
Yeah. I wish you'd have spoken to me a few years about it in better times, I must say. It's a bit of a bad time at the moment.
Well, we'll dig into all of that, but let's go right back to the beginning then, Steve. Why Derby? How did you find your way to the mighty Rams?
Well, I was actually born in a town called Burton-on-Trent, Derby being the nearest major football team. It's about 8 miles from Burton. And the hostelry that my father used to go to quite regular, one of the footballers' agents used to go in there, and he used to give match tickets out every now and again. And fortunately, I was actually 8, and my very first game my father took me to, it was Derby versus West Ham. And this was actually the season, the 74-75 season was the year we won the league. That's how long ago it was, the First Division Championship. But in regards to the team, Bruce Rioch scored the winner. It was a 1-0 game, and it was at the old baseball ground at Derby. And no, it was just absolutely hooked from day one with the atmosphere, everything. It was fantastic. It was. So definitely the start of something big. And as you know yourself, you get plenty of eyes, and unfortunately for us, far more lows. So yeah.
Well, we'll dig into that in a second. So then, because we were talking some of the guys that have come on before about, you get taken to a game when you're quite young. Sometimes it can be a couple of years until it kind of really bites you and pulls you in. But you were all in from 8 years old, then that was it.
Oh, definitely. I went whenever we got tickets. I went to not a lot of games. Certainly, as I say, I was 8 years old when I actually went to my first game, and we went to a couple of games after that. But certainly when I moved to secondary school as well, there was a couple of us in school who were big Derby fans, and one of my friend's fathers used to take us in his minibus. He used to drop us to the game, and he'd pick us up after the game. And then it progressed. Once I left school, I had a season ticket and everything in the standing end at the old baseball ground, which was called the Pop Side. And just grew and grew. And then sort of in between, uh, I'd always worked as a ball boy at my local football team as a youngster, Burton Albion, who at that time were in the were non-league in the Northern Premier and the Southern Premier League, and of course when Nigel Clough came to manage Burton Albion, and they just rose up into the Football League where they're barely hanging on in Division One at the moment.
So, okay, let's get this bit out of the way, and then we'll get on to happier times. I had a look at three, and let's see if any of these are yours. But obviously, lowest lows are personal, so maybe it's not. I was looking at the 2002 relegation and financial crisis, the 2007-2008 season in the Premier League, where maybe you set a couple of unwanted records in the season that you went down, and then going into administration in 2021. Any of those three your lowest low, or Steve got a different one?
Um, I, I think certainly the 2021. Um, I think when you say when we went into the Premier League and sort of broke some records, to a lot of I actually went to the playoff final at Wembley. We played West Ham, and we won the game 1-0. And myself and my friends just looked at each other at the end and said, "How did we do that?" And even in the pub after the game, we went for a few drinks after. We were saying then that there's no way we're going to be able to compete in the Premier League. So it was no surprise what actually happened there. The following season, it was just the crowd will always stick with Derby. I think we had one of the highest attendances, probably one of the top five attendances regularly when we were in the Premier League, when we were getting beat 5-6-0. I did go to a few games, in the Premier League. I certainly remember travelling from Cardiff one evening. We played Chelsea away on a Wednesday night, and there was a few hundred Derby fans there, obviously in the away end, and Chelsea quite quickly went into a 5-0 lead. Derby scored, and this is the lovely thing about football supporters. Derby scored to make it 5-1 and started chanting at the Chelsea fans, "You're not singing anymore." to which I think it was Frank Lampard came straight back and scored the sixth. So it was a game like that, but unfortunately we did have a few mullowings in that particular season. But yeah, but as I say, it was no surprise that one. But in answer to your original question, definitely 2021 was the low when we did go into administration then, and sort of struggled ever since then, really. But no, we plod on anyway.
Two things I was going to follow up on. It's kind of one on each of those actually. Is that so? Last week, I had John, the Liverpool fan, on, and we were making a prediction about the Southampton game this week, which we're both pretty much assuming is going to be an absolute mullering for Liverpool at home against Southampton. It's just going to be a goal difference maker. And I was saying, it'd be interesting to get a Southampton fan on to see what's it like supporting a team in a season like that, where you kind of, I guess, like you just said, you just have to find your own little victories, right? Even if it's cheering for that single goal.
Yeah.
Can you enjoy that season? I mean, is it the fact that you were up in the Premier League and it's like, do you know what? It doesn't matter. It's 38 games of being in the Premier League up here. Who cares what happens? Or do you actually get a bit down about it when you're getting beaten all the time?
Um, I, 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 I don't think anybody got down about it, Rob, because I think being honest, we didn't expect anything else because we knew the team that we had going into the Premier League, and we sort of fluked the final against West Brom anyway to get into the Premier League. And I always remember at the end of that game that they interviewed the manager then, Billy Davis, and he virtually said these players aren't good enough, for the Premier League, which obviously fills them with a lot of optimism. But No, it was, as I say, it was no surprise. I think it was just one of them. We were glad to get to the Premier League and just enjoy it for what it was. There was no way we were going to, do anything major in there. Well, we did do something major. We got 11 points out of it after 38 games. But four of them points, I'll have were against Newcastle. We beat them at home and we drew with them away. So, yeah.
Yeah, I won't dwell on it too long, but I just quickly for anyone listening to this that obviously Steve just mentioned the points total of 11 points, which is currently two more than Southampton have right now. Um, they also went down with one of the worst goal differences, or the worst goal difference, and equaled the earliest post-war relegation. Sorry, set the earliest post-war relegation, equaled Loughborough's 108 old football year record of going through an entire season with only one win. So it's record breaking. Celebrate the record, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're famous for something anyway. So
So then, you say, yeah, going into administration. We've had a couple of people on talking about that. In fact, my very first guest talking about Hereford. In fact, they went, Phoenix from the Flames. Hereford FC is actually, the Phoenix of the Flames of Hereford United. Did you sense? Because I think it was a year. It was 2022 when you came out of administration.
yeah,
During that point, are you kind of thinking, "Oh, crumbs, this is it. Like there won't be a Derby County soon."
it was very 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 close. It really was because it got down to sort of the last few days, and there was I forget. We had a few people who were interested, and on two occasions there was. I forget what the guy's name was from America. Was it Chris Kirchner? I believe he's actually. I think he's in federal prison at the moment because he got. Yeah, he run. He was an American guy who had an American business, and apparently he was swindling the money away, and he was having trips to big football games, and he actually held meetings twice with Derby, making all promises and everything. And I think he may have gone to Preston in between the first and second visit with ourselves, and I think they sort of saw through him as well. And it was they did turn him down on the second occasion because his deadlines were just getting extended all the time. He promised he had the money and he never came through. Unfortunately, David Clough, who's a big Derby fan himself, he owns a building firm, his family does. Unfortunately, he stepped in and he's always said from the start he needs investment. He'd rescue the club. There was never going to be millions and millions of pounds, that we could spend, but he's kept the club afloat. And
Yeah,
hopefully, I did read a report earlier on tonight that there is hopefully some investment coming in from a source. So obviously, it'd be far better if we do stay in the Championship than going back down to League One because it's an exceptionally hard league to get out of. Division One is if you've seen the teams that have been down there before,
yeah.
the so-called bigger teams, and it's years before they've got out. And it was such a relief for us to get out of the league last season, but we've sort of not gone above halfway really, and slipped and slipped. So
Yeah, we'll come on to your upcoming games in a minute because it's fair to say you're in a little bit of trouble. You're in a spot
mm,
of bother at the moment in the
yeah,
championship, so we'll come on to that. So let's hit some highest highs then. What's the thing that you look back on and smile and go, yeah, that was the day that was.
Derby 5, Nottingham Forest nil, 22nd of March. Yeah, 2014. Craig Bryson hat trick, Jeff Hendrick and Johnny Russell, 5-0.
I mean, if you haven't got one and you don't know one in detail, that's fine. Look at that straight there, the date, the game, the scorers. Wow. Okay.
But how the tables turn, you see, Forest are obviously our biggest rivals, and they went through a few years of struggling themselves, and as I say, look at them now. They're flying. They are in the Premier League. It's they're having a fantastic season, which yeah, you do have to admire them for it, but through gritted teeth. But yeah, it was sort of us who were above them for many years, over the last 10 or 15 years, and how things change. So
It does. It can change so quickly in this game. I mean, just even look at Forest, right? Last season, everyone's tipped to go down, fighting for their lives to stay up. Fast forward one season, and they're in Champions League spots. How does that happen? But
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
okay, so just a couple more then. So again, I was looking back. I thought, right, what's he going to pick? I mean, obviously, I didn't have the 5-0. That wasn't something I looked into. But you had
Mhm.
1987 league title to get back to the top flight, which I think was to back promotions under Arthur Cox. I think I remember him on a Panini sticker back in the day on
Yeah,
the Derby
yeah,
team photo. And then I was looking at 2006 promotion, seven promotion to the Prem, 2022 coming out of administration, and maybe last year getting promoted back up to the Championship. I thought he's bound to pick one of those, but no, I didn't have the 5-0 on my bingo card, Steve.
yeah. You ask any Derby fan, and they'll say exactly the same. But yeah,
So, so before we start looking ahead to the kind of coming fixtures, what I've started doing recently as well is kind of just scanning down the names of players that kind of stick out. That I go, oh well, yeah, I remember them playing for Derby, and I was going
mm,
down the players that had got like more than 100 appearances for Derby, and there's been some crackers on here, but
mm,
number one that I found on here, I swear he always used to score against Arsenal. That was Dean Saunders.
yeah,
He always seemed to score against us. Um,
yeah,
and you got Will Hughes, Tom Huddlestone, like Bruce Rioch caught my eye as old Arsenal manager. Never realised he played for you guys.
absolutely. But Bruce Rioch, he actually, as I say, my first ever game at Derby against West Ham, Bruce Rioch actually scored the winner there. But yeah, suppose he'd had one of the hardest shots in football. Bruce Rioch did, left foot. So yeah, he used to take all the free kicks, everything.
Well, talking about set piece specialists, you had Rory Dlap as well in his big throw in.
Mm,
Mark Wright, Scott Parson, Charlie George, Dion Burton, Robbie Savage, Georgie Kinclatsey, Danny Higginbottom, Mark Poom, and Marco Gabbiadini. That's some great names.
yeah, Franny Lee. Um, oh, it was Archie Gemmell. The team. At one time, we had, and this is Derby, we had three of the England defence. We had Colin Todd, Roy McFarland, David Nish, the left back. And as I say, that these were the years when I first started watching them, Derby.
Yeah.
But no, fantastic side. It really did have a fantastic side. But like you say, Charlie George, that was in the early years and absolutely fantastic. I used to love watching him because he was a proper centre forward. And I don't know if you've ever seen, um, there's a video clip. We actually played Real Madrid at home, and I believe it was 4-2. But if you do get chance, you see the Charlie George left-footed volley on that goal, in that game. Just absolutely superb technique.
Well, talking of great goals, somebody that I remembered being for Derby that wasn't on this list, so I had to go and double check that I wasn't daydreaming that he played for you guys. He's not on the list because he didn't make 100 appearances. He made 72, and I definitely remember this goal. Made his debut on the 5th of April 1997 with a memorable solo goal against Manchester United at Old Trafford, beating four United players before slotting past Schmeichel. Who am I talking about, Steve?
Paolo one shot.
He was brilliant.
He was, yeah. Big gangly legs, and he picked the ball up. I think he was just inside the halfway line, and he weaved his way through six or seven Manchester United players through the defence, and fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But yeah, and then I believe West Ham pinched him from us, but yeah, very good player, very underrated.
Yeah, yeah, one of those players that can be a little bit frustrating for fans as well because when you see a goal like that, so you know it's in there, but he couldn't do it every week.
Yeah,
And when players like that can't turn it on every week, you get a little frustrated because you're like, I know you can do better than this. But yeah, he was great. There was a couple that also came up when I was kind of looking at like greatest ever Derby players. Um, and neither of these two are on the list because they didn't quite make 100 either. You've got Stefan Eranio, the Italian winger, made 95 appearances and scored the first goal at Pride Park, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And these were all sort of Jim Smith, his signings. He had a he just got players, sort of picked players out of nowhere. I'm trying to think. We had a Croatian
Igor Stimac.
Stimac,
Yeah.
absolutely fan. And it's players people had never heard of, and they were fantastic players. They really were. And we had a really good finish. That season because the team was so good. But yeah, just Stimac. They all come back as a lot of the old players do to the clubs, to the games, and that they all get hero welcome because they were such fan favourites. They were.
No, you've definitely had some absolutely classic players down the years. It's just kind of a shame with the financial difficulty and then kind of tumbling down. So, as we kind of look ahead, you currently are, I hate to have to tell you, Steve, you're currently bottom of the championship. But only 7 points from safety, which actually isn't a huge amount with what have we got left in the championship? About 12, 14 games, something like that?
Is it? It's. I don't. It might be 11 actually. Yeah.
Or is it 11? Is it what
Yeah.
what have you played? Oh yeah, you played 35 and it's
Yeah.
46 game season, isn't it? So 33 points up for grabs and you're 7 adrift. And let's be fair, Plymouth, Luton, Cardiff, and Stoke actually throw Hull in as well. Nobody's going on like epic runs and kind of getting away from the bottom. So your problem is your next couple of games, while they're both at home, by the time this one goes out on Sunday, you'll have already played Blackburn at home on Saturday. They're up there sniffing around the playoff spots. And then Tuesday night, which is the one I'll get your official prediction for, is home at Coventry, are also right up there in the playoffs. So what are you thinking about for these two games? Is any point a good point? Do you need to win one of them? What are you looking at?
Blackburn is going to be a very bittersweet game. I know they sold out their away allocation of tickets 2 weeks ago because obviously John Eustace left under a cloud from Blackburn. So you're talking 3 weeks ago. So this is sort of a big clash for them now. And I'd like to say I'd like to say would win every game, but I think I'm going to go for 2-1. I think we might just do it. We've got to get a win from somewhere. It's not a case that we're playing overly badly. It's just finishing the chances. It is, and I think we've got a full team of injuries. On the sidelines. The injuries this season have just been horrendous. They really have. But yeah, we've got to start somewhere, but I think it'll be a bit of a feisty game, that one will on Saturday as well. And of course, the Coventry game, it's Frank Lampard, our old manager. He's coming back with Coventry as well.
They're flying.
He's done a fantastic job there, to be fair. Yeah, yeah. It was a bit of a shock when Mark Robbins left Coventry. I didn't think he'd done a bad job at all there because he got them to Wembley one or two times there. But I'm going for 2-1 again on that. I think 6 points out the next two home games.
Oh,
We'll be flying then. We'll only be 1 point off fourth from bottom then. So, well, that's if they lose. So,
Cardiff, who have they got coming up over the next couple of games? I have to be careful about this one. Used to live and work in Cardiff.
yeah, yeah.
So they're away at Sunderland. Oh, and then it's a big clash. It's Cardiff Luton. So if you do happen to win one of these games here, you've got to catch up points on one or both of those two. So, you know, games coming up.
Yeah. Well, Sunderland are having a very good season, and it was a bit of a turn up last week because Hull actually went to Sunderland last week and beat them 1-0 away. So that was another bad result for us. But yeah, it was, a cracking result for Hull.
Well, bad result for you. Bad result for me and my accumulator as well, because that was a coupon buster, that was. I had Sunderland down as a home win there.
Yeah, banker. Yeah.
So do you think, I know you're the eternal optimist, but as you look at this, enough points on the board, and you think Championship football next year, or you kind of maybe looking forward to kind of trying to do a title charge at League One next year?
To be perfectly honest, I'd much rather finish fourth from bottom in the Championship. By goal difference, whatever. I think it's very, uh, and like we touched on earlier about investment, it's far easier to get investment in the Championship than it is, in the first division. And it's a if you go down to the first division, it's a totally different type of player that you want. Um, that there's no, there is some good football played, in the first division, but obviously not your Championship standard. And it's a lot of journeymen and very experienced players in the first division all fight for everything, and that's the sort of player you want. There's no, like hiding places in the first division because it is a very hard league, and there's a lot of really good, ex-Championship and Premiership players down there as well. So
There's a lot of great teams that I've said this on a couple of episodes now, but as you start looking down the tables, you think, geez, I remember when they were in the top flight. I mean, look at League One at the moment. You got Reading in there. I remember when they were in the Premier League. Charlton. Obviously, that's going back a fair way, but they used to be up in the top league. Blackpool, Barnsley have all been in the Premier League. Birmingham, Huddersfield had a couple of seasons up in the top as well, didn't they?
yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah,
Yeah, so you got Huddersfield down there. Bolton, when same way that Jim Smith was getting all these players and bringing them together. I remember when Sam Allardyce was collecting all of these kind of like Hierro and
yeah,
JJ Okocha and bringing all those
yeah.
guys to Bolton. So yeah, there's just you slip and fall, and there's no guarantee you're coming back up again. That's the problem with all of this.
Oh, absolutely not. No, because as well, if you are perceived as that big scalp, everybody wants to beat you, and they will give it an extra 10% against you anyway, because they obviously like to beat the bigger teams. Not saying that we're a massive team, but we've usually been in the top two divisions, and it's a good scalp for the lower teams. But yeah, but like I say, what will be, what is will be. So fingers crossed, we finish a minimum of fourth bottom. So yeah,
Just be the fourth worst team in the league, and you're happy.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. It was always going to be because this is our first season back in the Championship. It was always going to be, you know, just to stay up. That was the aim. And everybody said the same at the start of the season, just to stay up and then build on top of that the season after. So,
Yeah, just quick question on that because just before we wrap this up, and it's kind of struck me kind of watching the fortunes of Wrexham as they're moving up the league as well. A lot of people say League Two and League One are very similar divisions to play in, and the squad that takes you up from two into one can usually, with a few additions, compete really well in League One. And I guess Wrexham are kind of proving that they're up in the playoff spots at the moment after getting promoted last year. But when you cross that divide, there's like then two big jumps ahead. You go from League One into the Championship is a big jump. You go from Championship into the Premier League, probably even a bigger jump as well. So if or like when you have gone down in the past, do you have lots of players that have kind of got those relegation clauses and you go back to losing a lot of those fan favourites? What kind of have you seen in the past?
um, we had to sell, especially when we were in the administration period, when we were going down, we had to sell a lot of our younger, decent players. Um, there was a couple, Jason Knight, Max Bird, they both went to Bristol City. And no disrespect to Bristol City, but we used to be buying their players and what have you. And it's like, sort of the Hawks are circling, picking the players off your team. And I think that was one of the most disheartening things when you can actually see your team being picked apart and know you've not got the strength to stay up. And it's very disheartening like that. But on that subject, when we actually did go into administration, I know a lot of the supporters. Mel Morris, who was the chairman at the time, he did have, quite wrongly, death threats and everything and all this. But he came in. He was a big Derby fan himself. Pumped millions into the club, and fans see that you've got money. You've got, oh, let's buy in, let's buy in, let's buy in. They all want them players bought. You know, oh, why aren't we buying him for so much? Why aren't we buying him? And then when it does go wrong, I mean, he was good to his word. Mel Morris was. He spent a fortune on players trying to get that golden egg at the end of it, and that's how close things get. I always remember in the playoff final at Wembley, we played Aston Villa, and they beat us 2-1, and that's how quickly your fortunes can change. Because if we'd have gone up to the Premiership, speaking to a few Aston Villa fans, that could have been them in our position, with the money worries. And there's that many teams that, like you mentioned earlier, Reading, the people throw money and money trying to get into the Premiership because it's such a lucrative league, and you get massive sums of money. That's why you always see these teams, going into administration and docked points and everything. And I can see from one point, on people having a go at the chairman, but from the other side, the fans go at the chairman to spend the money, and when it doesn't go right, they're chasing. Oh, you shouldn't have spent that, and what have you? You got us in trouble. So, it's bad accounting, I know, but you know what football fans are like. They want the very best, and
We are the ficklest of them all.
oh, absolutely.
So, well, thank you so much for coming on.
No pleasure.
We will be cheering Derby on for those next two games. We'll see if Random Fandom can bring a bit of good luck Derby's way.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, thanks again and good luck for the rest of the season.
Okay, cheers, Rob.